Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tania.
I'm Susanna.
And look at us, Susanna. We have been so on it this year that we are recording our April episode in March. I mean, I'm not going to post it till April.
Well, I don't know, but we've messed this up so many times that I was laying there in bed last night trying to figure out if this was the March episode or we were actually ahead for once.
We are ahead, and so I'm proud of us. And I was actually thinking we are almost, by recording this one, we are almost halfway through our third year of podcasting. Isn't that wild?
I don't know. We talk a lot.
I mean, it's wild. I just told Terry, Susanna's husband, we were about to run out of things to talk about. And Terry goes, I doubt that very much.
Well, that's because some people think that some topics are too boring to talk about, even though they're things horse people talk about.
I know. We were trying to come up with this month's topics.
That's too boring. That's too boring.
Susanna said some things. I was like, I don't want to talk about that. No. So I do think we ended up with a good list this month of topics. Before we hop into those topics, I want to mention I'll probably post this April 1st, so you still have time to hear about...
Then they won't believe it's real.
Oh my gosh, on April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day, and they won't believe it's real.
Oh my gosh, maybe on April Fool's, I should upload that little mini 8-second one. That one that goes...
Don't tell them.
No, well, they heard it on last episode.
Oh.
That's what I should do. That would be funny. Okay, but we won't, whatever. If we do that, then this will have been posted April 2nd, and you'll already know. So we have Equine Affair coming up. I think that runs the 9th.
Is that when horses get together and fall in love with each other?
They have affairs.
Yes.
And hopefully they don't make more horses, because that's not what we need. Actually, Tanya said we have 98 horses in the rescue right now, and that's...
Tania thought she was lying.
I did. I was hoping we were around to 80.
She's like, no, she's counting ones that are adopted.
Yeah, she had to send me the list, and I looked over it. And
Then what's really funny is she's sending me these names, and she's going, who is this horse? Who is this horse?
There were 2 on there, but to be fair, I've never seen those horses. We're picking them up today. They're listed as in the rescue because the surrender forms just came through, but I've never seen them. I don't even know that I've seen photos of them. Maybe I have. But they're actually going to officially go to the rescue today.
They've been at a Foster's,
though. So, 98 horses. I was hoping around 80.
98 horses.
Oh, well,
98 horses hanging out in the stall.
Yeah.
Not really, because we don't like to stall many horses. But...
No. So at Equine Affair, we hope to get at least, we're taking 4 or 5. I hope at least... Well, usually almost every horse gets adopted. Sometimes every horse gets adopted. So we hope to see good adoptions there. That's in Columbus, I think April 9th through 12th.
Make my day and adopt the little bay first, because Tania's always like, no one wants a bay. And then the bay was the first one to get adopted.
1 year, I think it was. Well, and actually, Izzy was adopted the first year, and she was a little bay. But I knew she would adopt. She was a nice little horse. So, not to say the other little bay wasn't. She just wasn't, she had very little training. She was just, a baby. So, that other mare, it made more sense to me because she was a nice mare to ride. Anyway, so we have that, and then more dramatically, we have ATFO pickup coming up. This is the first year that we really aren't even, we have so many people training and so many coming back that we almost can't fit the people in we have. So it's a good problem. In some ways, we can't make the event work time-wise if we take really anybody else. So for our 10th anniversary, we're finally at the point that we're like, no thanks, we're good. I think we have all the trainers we need. We have all the horses we need.
Yeah.
We've vetted almost all of the horses already.
Yes.
And so really it's a great spot to head into our 10th.
10 years in, we finally got our crap together.
Right. Well, and I mean, you could apply that to so many things in life, but yes, it's taken us 10 years for sure for the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off for us to be headed at pickup, feeling like everything's kind of already in order.
But they don't understand really unless they've come what a big process that is, because it's such a big process.
It's so much more than people could imagine if you haven't done it.
It's wild.
And this year, one thing that I think will make it way easier, for one, the 365 horses, which are primarily your feral, not all, but feral horses, they've already went out,
Yeah.
directly to the trainers. So vet day will be so much. Last year, our vet day on that Monday for vetting before ATFO pickup was $17,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
and like 7.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Walker actually said this is too much, but part of that is a lot of horses had just been given, turned over to us, surrendered, and then a lot of ferals, and trying to get them in the chute, and then trying to do lamenesses. It was intense. So this year, so much of that's done. The 365 horses are out. We only have, what do we say, 4 ferals? Yeah, 4 ferals, I think, to do that day. And overall, I think it'll be so much different than last year and many previous years. It wasn't like last year it was a little more, but most years have been intense. So anyway, look to start following your favorite teams in terms of sponsorships. You can sponsor stalls at Equine Fair. I think we only have 2 stalls sponsored of horses going. I think sponsorships, we reduced it this year just to encourage. I mean, we're just in a challenging economy, so our costs are higher, but I think our sponsorship this year is $100 per stall. And then for ATFO pickup, every single ATFO horse that will be picked up, there's probably around 35 to 40, needs a stall sponsored for $60. We have to pay that to be at the facility. So it's so important if you are following a team, well, they're not even teamed up yet, but a horse that will be part of ATFO as a team with a trainer, consider sponsoring their stall, because it's huge costs for us to use that facility. So moving on, this is a topic that I do find interesting by chance. We are going to talk to you about aging and teeth and how unreliable it can be, and how, some of the different stories over the years of us running into issues with that. So,
well, we've had babies born in our rescue, which I'm very picky about. When the babies are born in our rescue, the birthdays follow them, and then they get adopted, and 2 years later the veterinarian's like, no, this one is actually 14, and I'm like, I was there when it was born, here's its birthday picture.
But really, what really did happen is a baby born in the rescue, a veterinarian said that he was at least 1.5 to 2 years older, definitively. Could not be a 2-year-old. Could not be.
Like, here's his birthday picture. Here's the date.
And so, and I will say, aging teeth, usually if the horse is 5 and under, it should be very definitive. It really should, but that's an example of it. It isn't as black and white even at those ages. But when you start getting, say 8 years old and up, it's a crapshoot. It really. And the reason I think this is important is, you can think people are intentionally trying to be dishonest to you,
right?
When they really sincerely thought or think, and maybe there's no way to even prove how old the horse is.
What's really wild is when a horse has a half and half mouth. Like, you look at one side and it says it's 9. You look at the other side and it
looks
says it's
17.
21.
Right.
It's like, what the heck?
That, and we've had that lately several times, and Dr. Walker and I have talked about it, and you just go back and forth. I'm like, and I don't know which side's telling me the truth, or maybe neither side. Historically, teeth are a confusing potential indicator, of age. And I think you have to look at the overall, it's still a guess, overall body of the horse paired with the teeth, can tell you a little bit. But if you are adopting or buying a horse and you are depending on teeth to be definitive, you are wasting your time. And don't assume that somebody is being dishonest.
Remember on Facebook when those people had the papers and the horse had very distinctive markings, and they were like, my veterinarian says this horse's teeth say he's 30 and these papers are faked. And it's like, for Pete's sake.
Right. Well, and we have to go through this every year at ATFO, because, we do have to assign an age. The Coggins has to have an age.
Yeah.
And we're going to go with essentially what I think, paired with Dr. Walker, over the years, 1,500, 1,600 horses coming through the rescue. I'm pretty good if an age ends up surfacing that's definitive. I'm usually pretty close, or quite right. There are times I am not, and because it is just your best guess and gut. But remember, we sent out a horse that came in as reported to be 7 at the seizure. It was a stallion, and extraordinary starvation case. And the trainer said her vet insisted. So we said 7. We agreed with that. Like, it wasn't the age 7 followed him, but we felt that was accurate. But then I think he went to the trainer, and the trainer and her vet were saying 16.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not saying you're wrong. Maybe you are. But once we have assigned an age, it's going to have to follow the horse unless something surfaces that proves a birth date. But I always think of Winston and Churchill. We had, this was 10 years ago, I would say. They were paint stallions from a seizure somehow, and they were turned over secondhand to us. And they were aged as 20 and 25, I believe. And we went ahead and gelded them because they were otherwise, they were thin, but, they seemed sound and sane. And years after adoption, somebody recognized, I think, Churchill, and we had thought he was 25 back then, and it was like 5 years into it, and they messaged the page and had his birth and the date, and he was, I think, 7, 8 years younger, maybe even 10 years younger than we had thought. It was substantially younger. So sometimes people assume you're making the horse younger, but it's on either side of the coin. So you may luck out and you maybe told a horse is 20 and he's actually 12. Well, yay. You maybe told the horse is 12 and he's 32. So, and people will say, horse traders, they'll all go through things and tell you things, but really it is a guess if you don't have papers. And even if you have papers on your horse, I don't know if those are your horse's papers.
Well, the one on the internet very definitely was.
Sometimes they, but just because your horse has papers doesn't mean that...
If it's low blackie with no white marks, that makes it a little harder.
Who knows? So don't get mad at a rescue or a seller or a trainer or your vet if the age isn't jiving with what you hear next. That's very easy to... or who did we just have a conversation with?
I don't know, but you know what horrified me? The vet dentist at one of the facilities we go to, I asked him how old a horse was. He said, I don't know, I'm not very good at teeth. I'm like well, you're a freaking vet dentist.
But also, yes, I agree. But also, just be honest. Teeth lie to you. Maybe that was just his way of hey, I've seen enough to know.
He said, I don't know, I'm not very good at teeth.
Who was it the other day? It was some adopter reached out, and I think that's what made us think of this. An adopter reached out about a particular age. And, I just linked to an article I wrote about it because, maybe what you're coming up with is right and what we came up with originally is wrong, but there really is just no way to know. Yeah. In that situation, we had a pretty good idea of the age because of how young it was when it came in, but still. Anyway, that's all we've got for teeth. I think we've got a pretty good adoption story, like rescue adoption story that leads into our main topic this month. And this story goes back to 2012. We actually got this standardbred mare in 2011. Her name was Moon. I don't remember what her actual registered name was. I feel like Moon was part of it, but she was brought to us by a now defunct place in Ohio. And they'd found her wandering in maybe Circleville, Ohio.
Yeah, in the ditch in a community.
Yeah, and she was thin. Nobody ended up claiming her. She was young. They brought her to us. They had said she was, I feel like, hard to handle, but she ended up being really lovely. I have pictures of my oldest son when he was, he would have been so young back then, maybe 10 years old, riding her. Back then, Heart of Phoenix was very new. We weren't even a technical 501c3 organization yet. When she came in, we were still waiting on that paperwork, and it was an informal process. We were trying to figure out how to do this well. There weren't a lot of good examples that.
What did it take 10 years?
Huh?
It's like the ATFO. It took 10 years to figure out how to do it well.
Yes, it absolutely did.
Everything takes 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we really.
Well, that's how I wound up stealing Tessa, because y'all weren't very good at it back then.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, that we still run into, though. The adopter's like, I don't know what I signed. I don't know. If you haven't heard that story, it was like
we talked about it in
another
podcast.
episode. But we had an adoption of a horse in 2012. That's how Susanna got involved. We had an adoption in 2012 of a horse, and the adopter, who we love very dearly now and has been involved in HOP for years, really didn't understand what she had signed. Didn't realize that we still kind of owned the horse and had to track and approve what, the horse had to come back to us. And she gave the horse to Susanna, who had no idea.
I moved out of state with her.
And took her out of state. And one day gets a message from me like, hey, you have our horse.
And you're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to. Well, so in this case, much more nefarious than that.
Yes.
We adopted Moon out. This was a veterinarian assistant. She screened well for the way that we screened then. It's not like we screen now, but there was a process and there was a contract, but nothing was as formal as it is now. And we didn't have the experience. So this adopter comes, she meets the horse. Moon was very easy to get along with, very kind, friendly sort of mare, 5 years old, I believe. And remember, in a bay standard bred mare with a freeze brand on her neck. That will be relevant here shortly. Well, did we even know you, Susanna, when this happened?
Mm-hmm.
Just, so 2012 rolls around. She ends up, I'm trying to think, is my timeline right? I feel like it is. And so 2012 rolls around. She's adopted. I check in each month, and it seems okay the first couple of months. And then I check in, I don't get a photo back. Then I check in and she sends a picture of a horse way at a distance. And I'm like, that's not Moon. This is a little black pony. And I follow back up and she doesn't answer. And so at the time, my kids were so young, I wasn't able to go. But so my husband, I called my husband. I was like, you've got to go get this horse back. Here's the address. Just go and get the horse. The horse belongs to Heart of Phoenix. And so he and 2 volunteers go up to Ohio. I think it was around Chillicothe. They go to the property and Moon is not there. And they're there long enough that the gal eventually comes and admits that she sold her on Craigslist a couple of months prior for less than her adoption fee, which was $500, which she would have gotten back had she just called and said it's not working out. And she did give my husband the name of the horse trader that bought Moon. So we call that horse trader, and he's like, this horse is this very expensive horse, and you all didn't know what you had, and she's worth all this money. And, no, I've already sold her to an Amish guy who's also a horse trader, and here's his information. It was kind of wild that they kept giving us the contacts of who had the horse. Or that we were able to even to have that. Like it was just, the Lord, I guess, wanted it to work out. But then, so we have to call the Amish guy. It was very hard to get a hold of, obviously. He's Amish. He doesn't have a phone in his house, but there was like a community phone. So he called back. But here's the thing. We talked to this Amish guy. He is not nice. He's pretty belligerent on the phone. He's telling us this is this very expensive mare. And I'm like,
her freeze brand was wonky.
It was wonky. And I try to explain to them each time. I said, listen, you think it's this horse. So did we. We did her DNA to verify with U.S. Trotting. She is not that horse. She is this horse. We have the DNA information to show and prove that. Well, that didn't suit their story. So this starts unraveling. At the same time, an attorney picks up the case against the adopter, and we file a lawsuit against the adopter. And that's going on while we're trying to get this horse back. So we were looking for, now Uri Yoder took her up and sold her, he said, in Pennsylvania. So now we're looking for a bay standard bred mare with a freeze brand in PA, where every horse is the bay standard bred with a freeze brand on her neck. So it went on for months. It was not quite a year. Probably 6 months, it seems like, before Yuri Yoder called and he said, if you'll pay $3,000, I'll go up to PA and she's with a Mennonite family. I'll buy her and bring her back. So,
which was kind of amazing, really.
That was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So, we had a donor, because again, this was so long ago. That was a big deal. $3,000 to buy a horseback. We had a donor that put the money up. The donor, my husband, and those same volunteers went up to Chillicothe because that's where the Amish man lived. And it was this whole, like, they pull in and the whole Amish community is there, and they do the exchange and we get the horse back. The heartbreaking part was that Moon was not the same horse. She had a totally different personality. She was very withdrawn, very anxious, just a totally different animal in those 6 months. It was shocking to me. And I haven't seen that a lot. We've placed a lot of horses. They usually come back, even if things unravel, pretty similar, but not always. But this was the most dramatic change in a horse. We had a really good adopter, was originally a foster, who held on to her a little while, but she started to say, oh my gosh, I think this mare's pregnant. And when we realized, oh my gosh, this mare has come back pregnant, because of course they bred her thinking this horse is worth all this money. It was a dramatic, valuable animal versus just randomly.
Racing standard bred.
Yeah. And so we ended up, she went into another foster. The sad part was when the foal was born, he was born dead. He was born dead. And so just really kind of that stuff was tragic. But in the vein of that, the horse Moon is still with that adopter. She's fine. She's healthy. She's been in a very stable home all these years later. And she's doing well. The things that came out of that were very worthwhile, though. So in the end, we did get the horse back. The horse is okay today. She's okay. But we were able to sue that adopter. We won a judgment, which mostly covered our costs. The attorney didn't charge us anything. We won that judgment, and that really set a precedent that our process works. We mean what we say. It held up in the court system, and we did collect the money through a wage garnishment. And
over several years.
It took several years. And the bigger, I think, story is that we said we can never be in this situation again, where we're trying to look for a horse and have no real good descriptors. And from that, I said, I want to start freeze branding the horses. And at that time, it felt like a really hard thing to do because, for one, when this first started, we had a different vet who didn't freeze brand. He ended up leaving to be a professor, ultimately at Purdue. And we started using Dr. Walker, who was very comfortable freeze branding. And in 2014, not quite 2 years after we got Moon back, we had gotten the freeze brand, registered it in the state of Kentucky because West Virginia doesn't have any branding laws. Registered it in Kentucky, and we started freeze branding. And Ellie, a saddlebred mare, was the first horse we freeze branded, and we have the videos of that.
Who we also had to go chase down.
Oh my gosh.
We'll save that story for another
time. Yeah, we'll save that. I forgot that.
Too.
And she had that brand, and I swear it saved her life.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know if you're hearing this, you'll be like, place these horses better. Listen, you can't do anything more than we do and actually place horses. You can't. There is no way in the world you can guarantee anything safe once it leaves your care, and that is a risk, but that's the only way we can keep helping more horses. So
it's also amazing how many people can sound very reasonable and sound of mind
and honest,
and then it unravels in 6 months, and you're like, where were you when we were talking to you through the adoption process?
Right, and then people were like, well, but you're not going to put those people on your application for us to talk to, and so I think our process now is very good. I think it's very fair to good adopters, and I think it's very fair to the horse and to the integrity of Heart of Phoenix. But Moon's story really did two really important things about what we do came out of it, that we stand behind our horses with an agreement we're going to do our best to enforce that, but that it led us to freeze branding, which I think is the most important thing we do. And I think it's the most important thing that any rescue organization or good breeder can do if you're going to make it at least widely known.
Yeah, you have to make it widely known. That's the key, is to make people know what that brand means. Which we know that works for ours now.
But because branding is our main topic, well, there are other things I have to say about that, which there are some things. I will move into our hot take. And this might be the hottest take of the month. And this wasn't said to us. We just saw this. But it
was on another rescue's post. This rescue had purchased these horses from auction specifically to euthanize them.
Which is a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. And not made a big kill pin scam out of it. They just purchased them at a reasonable price to euthanize them because they could see that that's what needed to be done. But somebody put in the comments that death was not relief for the horses, that it was just a cop out for this rescue. And I was like, what does that even mean?
I couldn't. I mean, I thought, for one, you have clearly never suffered through anything or watched an animal. And you must lack compassion. You know, what kind of blinders are you wearing to think death is not relief for an animal in pain?
I kind of think that they meant that the rescue didn't want to treat the problem. They just wanted to surf and turf them, or whatever you call it.
Yeah. Which, to me, you know, here's why that would never really apply. Because we do a lot of euthanasia at Heart of Phoenix. We do a lot of accepting of horses that we know that's the answer. And then a lot of horses, because of our high quality of life standard and what we're willing to pay on the front end, veterinary-wise, to determine euthanasia is necessary or that comfort is there, whichever way it needs to go, there's a lot of cost involved in euthanasia. And nobody wants to donate to it. So as a rescue, it wouldn't even follow financially that if the horses had a good outcome, that you wouldn't try to do that, because people are more willing to donate to treatments to keep an animal alive, even when they shouldn't, than to euthanasia costs.
And one of these horses very clearly had a broken leg.
Yeah. I mean, not to beat the dead horse, but you know my favorite soapbox is euthanasia.
You're a little weird.
Yeah, I was telling Susanna. So I am speaking later in the year.
Oh, here we go.
At the American Horse Council in Washington, D.C.
It's cracking her up because she can't be on the euthanasia panel.
I know. So I'm actually doing the presentation on kill pin scams, which is a great opportunity, and I'm very happy to do it. But they're like, and so because you're doing that, the euthanasia panel is pretty full. And I'm like, wait. How in the world are you going to have an equine euthanasia panel and Tania not be on it? I'm hurt. But because I really do think I have a lot to say about it, as we know. But so this kind of comment, when Susanna read it to me, I was driving here and she read it and I was like, wait, what? What? Read that again. I was like, that's the hot take. But I know the person sincerely means it, but that kind of mindset is so destructive to animal welfare. So it's wrong, period. You're just wrong.
Listen, a rescue that's going to an auction and looking for the horses with the broken legs and pulling them to immediately euthanize them is doing the right thing.
I wish that's why every rescue went to the auction, because otherwise you're feeding into a never-ending cycle of terrible. And so you could say, well, you're giving the animal, the person who's dumped the horse and out, they've dumped and are gone. They're not profiting now. The animal's dumped. They'll get a little check from the auction. When you're dumping a real clear euthanasia, I don't think that's anything in the ballpark of what it is when you're buying trader horses or horses that are being claimed to be shipped when they're not being shipped anywhere except to another auction or sale. So that whole, if that's your mindset, work through that. Get through that. Get therapy. get through this.
And thanks to whatever rescue it was, because I couldn't go back and find the post again for some reason, but thanks to whatever rescue that was that did that.
Whoever you are, you're doing the right thing. I don't care what dingalings say. Oh no!
You're not allowed to say that anymore. You've been banned.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Always flirting with the lines of the law.
Yeah. Okay, so so branding, freeze branding. If you are, if you're listening to this podcast, we freeze brand. But I want to talk a little bit about the differences, because people immediately, if you share it broadly, you're like, oh no, you're a rescue. You're
causing them harm.
You're hurting them. Look at that hot brand, because people don't know. They really don't know the difference in freeze branding and hot branding. I think hot branding is inhumane. It also leaves a very disfigured mark frequently. It's a very angry kind of scar. So that, even to me, is counterproductive. You want a real crisp line when possible. You want this mark to be very easy to read.
You know when you don't get a real crisp line? When it's foggy outside and your freeze brand ices over and you can't see it because it's covered in that cold
There
fog.
Is something that happens, and some scientists could hear this and tell us exactly why, but there's something will happen in the air with the humidity point, and you just not the day to freeze brand.
But you can't tell because your freeze brand is covered in that smog, so you can't see that your freeze brand's iced over till your brand turns out we call them squiggle brands, and it's like crap.
And sometimes you can repeat them, and sometimes you just can't. But freeze branding is often done on horses not sedated, and they have very little reaction. They have far less reaction than most horses do about an injection. And now, for safety, because you don't know for sure what kind of reaction would happen, we chose to do our brand on the left shoulder. Why? Because, for one, the left side is when most people are going to come up and approach a horse. It's going to be more apt to be seen. It tends to be the side people even take photos from. But also, the shoulder, to me, was a safer area and a little more unusual. So it was more apt to be noticed because of the side and the shoulder. You see those brands less.
Well, and also, safer. Some veterinarians say they won't freeze brand without stalks on a hip.
That's what I mean, like safety for us. Because if you do the hip and they do have a reaction and you are not in stocks, you could get hurt. We've never had any dramatic reactions. And at this point, I would say we've branded probably 1,200, 1,300 horses. I don't know. I mean, a lot of horses. Probably at least, say, 1,000 horses. And I've done probably 50 to 100 myself. And you've done a few, right?
I've done like 10.
Yeah. But our horses are done not in stocks. They're done you just hold them with the halter. They are done sedated. If I'm doing it, it's very lightly sedated. If the vet does it, they are heavily sedated because they're having their teeth done as well. And so they're already sedated. It's not even an extra sedation. As a rule, it's done during their intake when they're sedated for teeth. They have very little or no reaction to the application of the freeze brand. We put ours in liquid nitrogen. Dr. Walker actually says he, as time has gone on, likes dry ice better, but it's harder to get.
Dr. Hughes says she likes dry ice for cows better.
Well, he says for cows. He's not done it on a horse. So,
yeah,
but the hide difference, he's not sure. And there's just, we're pretty happy with doing liquid nitrogen. But there are those days but I think that would happen with dry ice too, when the humidity levels and things just don't line up and your brand doesn't take. But when you apply a brand, it's usually 10 to 12 seconds. Unless it's a gray horse, you apply it for about 30 seconds. If it's a gray or a light colored horse, then you want it on there long enough that the hair won't grow back. But it doesn't leave an angry kind of scar. It's a smooth scar. With colored horses, then it's going to leave white hair. We picked the brand we did with real simple lines. Obviously, it's a Heart P, real straightforward, but nothing fancy. If you're doing a brand, because people reach out to us all the time and ask about getting a brand done. And they want to make it real complicated. And you don't want a complicated brand.
You don't.
You
no.
want a real straightforward brand. But Susanna, who mans the hot phone, how many calls have you taken over the years seeing that brand or a brand that looks similar?
Probably 40 to 50.
And how many times has it been our horse? I don't know that it ever has. Like a call.
Yeah, somebody put her horse on Craigslist one time and somebody called about that. Who was that?
Well, on Craigslist, it was posted online. Somewhere it was Valor. And somebody saw him on a sales page on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was, a sales page. One
but
time.
It did help him. I mean, it did. But a lot of times it's horses that aren't ours, but the brand is so known that if it looks even kind of similar, you put a heart on a horse anywhere, we're getting a call.
Yeah.
Have you put...
Well, there is a heart P in Oklahoma.
Yes.
It's a whole different P. Their P is very manly, and our P is a little bit girly.
It's a different shape. The heart, too, is more tall. Ours is a fat heart. Theirs is like tall. But you took a call from Australia?
Thailand.
Yeah,
Thailand. Very difficult to understand that person, by the way.
How effective this brand has been. And over the years...
Our horse was not in Thailand.
Yeah, well, over the years, we had that sales call of Valor, and we were able to go and get him back. Because of his brand, that was why. There was nothing of Heart of Phoenix. And then Chaton was posted, and I got a message. And they print screened it, and he was posted for sale on Facebook.
Isn't that how we got Vato back eventually, too?
That's how we got Vato. Well, I think that's an incredible story. So, yeah, years we looked for that horse.
Yeah.
It was, and I don't mind to say it now, it was a tech at Rood and Riddle. And she's actually going to vet school, which I'm so angry over at Ohio State. This person who very intentionally and dishonestly wouldn't honor her adoption agreement and gave the horse away. And we have pursued her legally and had a hard time serving her papers so far. But 5 or 6 years we looked for him. And he came in like 2016 because he was in the 2017 ATFO. So he came in 2016. Went in 2017 ATFO, and was it year before last, because all the ATFO trainers started sharing their horses.
Yeah.
And a horse up in Indiana, Theo, was shared, and you saw the comment, right? Or somebody, saw the comment that said, what brand is that? I have a horse with that brand. And we immediately were like, it's got to be Vato, because he was the only branded horse we couldn't find.
Yep. And
I immediately messaged the girl and I said, if you have a horse with this brand, it is our horse. Can you please call me? And we had to pay to get him back. But because she had purchased him, put a lot of time into him. And she had it not been that, so many, like those trainers just were flooding Facebook with that brand. And she just happened to be friends with that trainer. And what is wild to me that she
had said that she had looked for that
couldn't
brand,
find it,
which was so weird because
if you type Heart P brand in on Google, I'm pretty sure we come right up.
Comes up.
Put a Heart P brand. I think Heart of Phoenix comes right up. I think I've checked it. So it was wild that she hadn't found it, but the brand has kept, and it's hard to say how many times that we don't know about that somebody that has returned a horse and honored their agreement and seemed to be very above board, really honored it because of the brand. If they had thought, well, nobody will know.
Oh, no, it's not coming up.
Really?
No.
Well, we need to do something about that.
We need to start talking about it again.
Yeah. Well, this will go a ways toward that.
Okay, so you have to separate Free's brand to get it to come up, and then it comes up, and it comes up in our pal Al as Heart of Phoenix.
Well, but if somebody dug very much, they should find it. But I mean, you never know how far somebody's going to search, because we know brands that aren't well known. We've researched them. We haven't had good luck with ambiguous brands. We get horses with brands, and all, like Slate has a brand. A hot brand.
Yes.
But, I mean, often these things aren't registered and there's not a big, like, if you're going to brand the horse, it doesn't do you any good unless you're very, like, public with it all the time and you have a good following. So for us, it is very effective. If you're just an owner who wants to put your own brand for your 2 horses, it's not. Now, I have talked about, and I still believe in this, and one day maybe it'll come to fruition, having a standardized rescue brand that kind of falls under the Heart brand. And a rescue in North Dakota or South Dakota. South Dakota just started doing it, and it's similar to ours.
Yeah, it's not a Heart P, though. It's a Heart something, their symbol in the
right.
middle.
And it was because we discussed it, and I said that Heart people already think of as like rescue related. I said, so I mean, if it were me, I have thought about a database and letting owners freeze brand their own horses, like potentially having a brand and you pay a fee to Heart of Phoenix for the database. You know what I mean? We maintain a database and we then ship you a brand and you have it done. And then we have a database. So I've thought about it being a heart on the left shoulder with another heart inside of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not something we're doing now. It'd take a lot more, if the platform would have to be, we'd have to grow and have more administrators and things. But I think in the future, if the world tarries and the Lord doesn't come back, that's something I believe in. But anyway,
it's a valuable tool.
It is valuable, and it is absolutely not a harmful welfare concern. It keeps them safe. So big believers in it, always will be. Until next time, we'll
yammer on about something else.
Yammer on about something else, and Susanna won't think she's Tania. You'd have to listen to the last month's episode to understand that. All right, until next time, I'm Tania.
I'm Susanna.
That's Horses of Courses.